When I first started speaking 25 years ago now, it was in here. It was at this place. I grew up here. And about when I was 40 now? When I was 40, that seems like shouldn't be that old. But I started here. I grew up here many years ago. I'm 66 now, so I'll give you my age, so you don't have to wonder about that. But when I first started speaking and thought about going to the ministry, this church was very supportive of me. And they continued to support me throughout my ministry. I was a hospice chaplain for a number of years here in Grinnell, and then in Davenport. When we moved to Davenport, my wife got a job in Davenport. So we spent some years in Davenport, and I worked in a hospice there, chaplain. And retired, moved back here. Glad to be back in Grinnell. Davenport's fine, but Grinnell's better, right? Grinnell's better, right? Yes. Okay. So Anthony asked me to speak today. I was supposed to speak earlier in the year, December or something, I don't remember. That blessed COVID got me. So I was under the weather. And I had brain fog for a number of days, so you didn't want me to speak. I was pretty well over it, but my brain wasn't working right. But now, hopefully, it's working better today than it was back then. That's how it's... So I guess I have control. How about that? I got control of the TV. My wife and I both have remotes, so it's who knows what we're going to be watching. But so that's let all creation speak. Psalm 119. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands. And today I want to talk. Today we wonder why doesn't God speak to us? We look at the Old Testament or the New Testament, and you hear God's voice of thunder coming loud and clear. And we don't hear that today. At least I haven't. And I don't think many of you have heard that voice. And we think, well, what are we missing? Why does not God speak to us today? But we know He does, right? We know He speaks to us today. It's just not the way it used to be. And we really don't want Him to speak the way He did in the Old Testament, because usually it was because He was angry. And we don't really want God to be angry at us. It's not a good place to be. Isn't that correct? Yes. So God is not really angry at His church because we are people of faith. And that's really when God got angry, is when people did not believe. Right? We mess up, sure we do. But when God gets angry, it's because people are not taking Him at His word. They don't believe Him. They don't believe in Him. They create false images and idols and all that good stuff, or bad stuff. Right? So we really don't want God to speak to us the way He did in the past. We want Him to speak to us today. And we know that Scripture says that God speaks to us through His Son. And we know that, right? God speaks to us through His Son. And when we believe that God sent His Son, He was born, He lived, died on the cross, He was buried, He rose again. And today, He speaks through that sacrifice, through His life and His sacrifice. But we also have the Holy Spirit, right, that has come into us that helps us along our way. So we have these things in our lives. We have Christ, center, and we have the Holy Spirit that is within us, right, to help us. But sometimes it seems like that isn't enough, that we want more. Well, it should be enough, but really, I think we're limiting ourselves on how we look at God and the way we see God, right? So today I want to talk about using all our five senses. What are they? Well, smell, touch, tasting, hearing, right? Those, hearing, seeing. So we got five. And there's a sixth sense I'd like to think about, but I'm not going to do that today. It's common sense, right? Which is sincerely lacking in a lot of places today, including sometimes me. But so we won't talk about common sense today, but we will talk about the other senses, the five senses. How we can see God in God's creation. Because, the heavens declare that he is God. The skies proclaim him in the works of his hands, right? So we have that creation that talks to us today about God. But do we listen? Do we see? Do we understand? Do we taste God's goodness in his creation? Do we smell the beauty of his creation? There are really, I came up with 3, and you could probably come up with more hindrances of us seeing God in his creation. One is we wall ourselves in. Not that we can't, I like my house, I like my air conditioning, I like all that stuff, right? I like my TV, I like these things, I like my easy chair. And I like inside. But I'm walled away, aren't I? When we go from, there we go. So when we travel, right, we go from our house to our garage to our car. We get in our car, we have the windows up, the radio on, air conditioning going, right? Which I like air conditioning. I've been in a car going in Nebraska in the middle of summer, 100 degrees, with no air conditioning, and that's not fun, right? That's not fun at all. I love air conditioning, don't get me wrong. But it hinders us from experiencing God's creation, doesn't it? We go down the road, we in our car, and I have a nice Buick, I like comfort, I like the smooth ride, but the only thing we smell is maybe the hog farm or the chicken farm or a dead skunk in the middle of the road, right? And then we get to the airport and we're encased, and we go in and we're there for 2 hours sitting, waiting for our airplane to take off, maybe if we're lucky. And then we go on our airplane from point A to B, right? We fly over God's creation. We may see the sky, we may see the clouds, but really we're not experiencing God's creation. We're enclosed again. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. That's a nice way to travel, although I like the car better. But that's a nice way to travel. I've traveled, I've flown. My wife flies all the time out to visit her brother. And that's where she's here. She's not here today. She's visiting her brother out in Montana. So we do enclose ourselves off from God's creation. In fact, in some way people think, is that we should close our off from God's creation. We shouldn't even be a part of God's creation, right? We're told we are a blight on God's creation as humans, right? That there's something wrong with what we are doing as people. That we are ruining God's creation. We're ruining the earth, right? In some circles, we shouldn't even be a part of the earth. We should not be here. But that's not the way God sees it. God sees that we should be a part of his creation. We are a part of his creation. We should be interacting with God, with his creation. Right? So the first thing is that we kind of wall ourselves off from God, his creation. The second thing is perception. How do we perceive God? Let's see if we can. I don't have that, but that's our next scripture. So we perceive God. So I've been walking out at Arbor Lake, right? Does everybody know where Arbor Lake is? It's in Grinnell. And I've been walking out there. There's a nice path around the lake, and then they made a path out in the woods, which is pretty nice. It's a nice little path, and it takes a while. But I've been walking around, and the geese have been going. The geese have been out there, right? They had babies this spring. So I really like the babies, right? I thought, that's great. God's, I like those babies and the geese, and they're protecting them, and they hiss at me when I walk by, because I tried not to get close, but they're on the path, right? So I go, well, that's not nice. You're not hissing at me. But then the babies got a little bigger, and you know what happens when babies get bigger? Well, not yet. They don't fly away until they poop all over the walkway, right? So I go, man, I really don't like him hissing at me, and I really don't like avoiding the poop, right? I really don't like that. My perception changed, didn't it? From looking at the babies and saying, man, that's great, to, oh man, what is this? God's creation didn't change. I know from a fact, from having 3 girls, that they poop. There's poop. But yet, it didn't let me walk in a straight path, right? It bothered me for a while. And now I started thinking about it. Well, what really changed? Did things change, really? I knew that would happen, or I should have known. If I was using common sense, I should have known. But then it really hit me because it hindered me going down the path, right? But yet, God's creation's still there, my perception of it. And when we look at the world and creation, our perception matters. Is it a chore to get out and mow the yard? Or do we, which it is, don't get me wrong, which it is, or do I see, man, that's amazing how the grass grows, right? That's amazing how the grass grows, that everything's green. And I didn't see that in the winter. I love it, but then it gets to be a burden, doesn't it? Or maybe I'm the only one. Am I the only one? No. It's back up again. But yet, really, it shouldn't be a moment. We should look at it that way, as a wonder. That how does that happen? Now, I didn't have good grades in school, really, and I know Jim probably could tell me how that happens, right? But maybe I don't need to know. Maybe it's just the wonder of it that's the important thing, right? The wonder of God's creation. That grass can grow that fast. And, we really don't have to mow it. Of course, we do. But really, that's what we put on ourselves, isn't it? So our perception changes, or can change. And I think that's one of the things that we can do, is change how we look at things. The third thing I was thinking about is we don't take the time. Now, I know we're busy. Now that I'm retired, I'm not so busy, so I can take the time, right? And I knew I was going to talk today about this, so I take my dogs for a walk, right, every evening. My little dog, which bothers me, he bothers me until I take him for a walk. So he whines at me, and he goes, okay. I go, okay, I'll take you for a walk, right? So I take him for a walk, and I noticed 2 things, at least, on my way there. One was a beautiful cardinal, one of the most beautiful red cardinals. They're all beautiful, but this one was pretty nice. And the other thing I saw was, and I'm not even from Newton, so it's good, the cardinals. So the second thing was a woodpecker, just on my stroll with my dog last night. So take the time to notice God's creation, to be out in God's creation. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. I know that sometimes it's hard, but it doesn't take long. Just the acknowledgement of it, right? Romans 1:20, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature has been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. How do we know? How do we experience God's creation? By seeing it. This winter, we went and saw this thing out in Las Vegas. Anybody know what the sphere is? It's basically a big upside-down bowl. And they have concerts there and everything, they charge a lot of money for these things. I mean, it's an experience. It is. And we got tickets to go see The Wizard of Oz there, the movie The Wizard of Oz. with Dorothy, and it starts out in black and white. So it's an experience, and you can see that sphere. They have different pictures on it throughout the day and at night, and you can see that sphere everywhere in Las Vegas, right? It's a wonder. It is. And you can see the sphere, and we were standing out in the parking lot waiting for the doors to open, right? And then when they open the doors, everybody rushes in. There's like thousands, a couple thousand people there, I'd guess. Rosemary, is that right?
I think they seat a lot more than that.
Yeah, I can see a lot more than that. But there, it was full. This is just one showing. One showing of, and so we go into the lobby, and we're rushing in, and we have to find the door where we go down into the theater, right? So we line up at the door, and then we go through the door, and I go, whoa! And it's not light or anything. It's just ambient lighting, But the stadium seating, it's like this. And you look down, and if you're scared of heights, you probably shouldn't go. And my wife's a little afraid of heights, and she was nervous for a while before we got used to it. So the stadium seating, and you're looking down, and I go, whoa, man, that's a long way down. But it's an experience. And the show starts, and all it is a little screen, black and white, of The Wizard of Oz, how it starts, And all of a sudden, the whole sphere lights up and tells the story of Wizard of Oz. All around you, up above you, and the trees come out and meet you. It's just an amazing experience. And if you get a chance, I recommend it, to go see The Wizard of Oz or whatever you want to see there. But The Wizard of Oz is usually played during the week. And when the tornado blows, we have the seats vibrate, and the wind blows in the theater, and leaves flow. It's an amazing experience. It's an immersion. And apples, when the tree loses its apples, fake apples fall from the ceiling, And it was a nice experience. It's one of the better experiences in Las Vegas. I recommend it. We did go out and hike out in God's creation, and there's beautiful stuff out in God's creation out there too, in Nevada. But yet, it is nothing compared to the starry night, right? Nothing compared to that. We try to imitate God in a lot of ways. We build things, which is good. We make things, but nothing compares to that. Nothing compares to the starry night, to the moon when it's close to the earth and you can see it big and wonderful, right? Nothing compares to that. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities can be seen through creation. Can we see God today through His creation? Yes, we can. If we take the time, intentionally looking for God's impact on the world and fingerprints on the world around Him, world around us. In Psalms 29, it says, "The voice of the Lord is over the waters, and the God of glory thunders." I don't know whether we have this or not. No, we don't. Okay. But does God speak through that or through the song of a bird? When I was going out my porch one day, there was this bird sitting on the branch of our evergreen tree, right? And I'm not a bird watcher really too much. I am more now that I've retired because I take the time. But this small bird, its beautiful melody was singing. It wasn't singing to me, but it was singing. It had a red breast, and it had a red head. And some of you probably know what it is, a house finch. If you've ever seen a house finch. It was singing this beautiful song, and this female house finch was looking at it, saying, "Do I really want to get together with you? I don't know about that." And it would fly away, and then it would come back, fly away, come back, and kind of peck at it. And I thought, that's an amazing song. And I think sometimes we're like that female finch, that we were looking at God and saying, okay, I want to get close to you, but how close do I want to get to you? Right? I'm sorry I moved out of the camera. But anyway, that was a beautiful song. So this female finch was kind of paying attention to it, kind of not paying attention to it, kind of looking at it. And here was this male finch singing this wonderful song with its beautiful feathers. I just thought, good luck, buddy. But anyway, I guess there was a success because a couple days later, I noticed there was a nest in our planter, hanging plant flowers, and there was 2 little eggs in there, and the mother finch was setting on the eggs. And I just thought, wow, that's an amazing thing that I got to experience that. I took the time to experience that. Now, if I was younger, I probably wouldn't have. That's why I'm saying that we need to take time to experience those things, to experience God through what we see and what we hear, that beautiful melody of his creation. Create moments to hear God's voice through the sounds that we hear around us. Whether it could be the baby's cry. We're God's creation too, right? The beautiful sound of a baby's laughter. The wondrousness of that. How do we smell? What do we smell when we go through life? What do we smell? Do we take time to see the scent of God's creation, of the pine forest? And I'm not talking about a pine forest in your car that you're hanging on your window, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about going out and smelling what is out there. Now, I know there are allergies, and I understand that. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, right? But we can take a little time, pause, and see God, and smell God, and understand that that's his creation, right? We can see him. We can smell him. We are experiencing God in fullness. In 2 Corinthians says, 15, for we are to God the pleasing aroma of Christ. So when we look out at each other, what do we see? Do we see the pleasing aroma of Christ? I hope so. Because we should. We should be seeing that. We should look at each other that way. I know we have issues, right? We always have issues. But we should be seeing us like God sees us. That we are the pleasing aroma of Christ. So now we'll go on to tasting. What does that taste like? What does that taste like? In Psalms 34:8, it says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Now, I would put up there a picture of bacon, because when I think of something that's pleasing, I think of bacon, right? Bacon, and it's not only pleasing to my mouth, it's pleasing to my scent. Oh, nothing smells better than bacon, right? And then his sizzle, you can hear it too, right? It's popping and sizzling, and you just, anticipation. There's an old commercial called Anticipation. It's not for bacon, but it's anticipation. Waiting for that so I can just taste that bacon and my mouth starts watering. God's provision for us. God's provided for us. Some of you may think of biting into an apple and the sweetness or tartness of an apple and your mouth starts watering and the juiciness or a pear. Just think of that. You know, I'm making you hungry. I know I am. That's okay. Just think of that. Or a nice steak. A beautiful steak. I mean, I'm a meat person. I know some of you probably aren't so much. But I am a meat person. I was raised on meat, and I'm still am. Meat and potatoes, right? Meat and potatoes. But fruit, I have raspberries out in my backyard that I planted that are about ready, and I'm anticipating tasting those raspberries off the bush. They're not even going to make it into the house, right? I'm just going to pick them right off the bush. I'm experiencing God through his creation. When I experience that, that's one of the reasons why I think God says that we should give thanks when we break bread. We should be remembering God when we experience his bountifulness. I think that's the word, bountifulness. His bounty. Do we remember to thank God? Do we remember when we are tasting God's provision? Taste and see that the Lord is good. And the final one is touching. And I think we'll get through this one. I'm getting close to the end here. I have a couple more pages, but we'll cut it off. We have celebration to do it to, right? Yes. So in Matthew it says, Jesus reached out and caught Peter. God is reaching out to us today. And how can we feel that today through his creation? I know when I was a kid, I'd be out playing in the dirt or looking at the ants, right? The colony of ants would be going around or whatever it may be that caught my fancy, right? Have I done that lately? No. Have I played out in the dirt? Do I see it as something? If I'm planting something, yes. But that again, it seems to be a chore, doesn't it? My niece called my wife. She usually calls my wife, not my niece, my grandchild, please. Anyway, my grandchild, Avery, called Chris, and she said, I'm bored. It's vacation. And I go, well, have you been outside? Have you done anything else? Well, it's raining. I go, well, did you go out and run in the rain? She goes, oh, Papa. But that's the way we look. Have I been out and running in the rain lately? No, I have not. I could have. I could have spent time sitting out in the rain and experiencing it. I'd have been wet. Is there anything wrong with that? I could have brought some soap out with me, taken a shower. But have we taken the time to experience things? And I would say I haven't. I haven't taken the time. My perception isn't the way it should be. I don't look at it the way I should, the way God sees his creation. He looks at it as good. A lot of times I look at it as something to avoid, maybe. Especially if you get into something that might cause itchiness, like poison oak, something like that. So there is things that you need to be aware of. You don't want to be like the tourists out in the parks and taking pictures of buffalo, getting close and getting more, you want to take precautions, but yet that's not a problem here, is it? We can go out and experience God through his creation. Take the time, change our perception, and stop. I think we need to stop hiding behind our walls, hiding behind our phones. I have my phone here. I looked on there yesterday and I spent way too much time scrolling because I can look up how much time I'm on the internet. Why? Why did I do that? Well, it was something, it kind of gets to you, doesn't it? We have this in my pocket. I have it by my chair. It takes up a lot of my time. But it shouldn't, really. There's nothing on there that I really need to see. And yet, I could be out doing something. I could be out looking at something that is totally different than this. I don't need this. But I do need a reminder of God. I do need that. I do need to see God in my life. I do need to take the opportunity every day to see God. And how am I going to do that? How are you going to do that? Touching. There's a song that is called Personal Jesus. Maybe you've heard it. Deepak Mode sings it. Johnny Cash recorded it. Own Personal Jesus. And it's an okay song. I like the song. But one of the lines that really struck me is, reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith. How are you going to reach out and touch faith today? How are you going to reach out, touch faith, see faith, smell faith, see faith? How are you going to do that? Smell. How are you going to do that in your life? How are we going to take the time? All things have been created through him and for him. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak of the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all of these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature, the breath of all mankind. Does not the ear test the words, and tongue taste the food? Is not wisdom found among the aged? I like that part. Is not wisdom found among the ages? Remember that. Remember that. Is not wisdom found among the aged? We'll all agree with that, right? Does not long life bring understanding? I hope so. I hope so. How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. God has revealed himself through the sea, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, and what we touch. This week, I challenge you to intentionally engage in each of these senses to encounter God, to look and see God through his creation. Let's close with a word of prayer. Oh God, as we go forth, let us see you in your creation, the wind that cools us on a hot summer day, and the rain that enables us for growth, the bird that sings its song to its mate, and when we smell the spring clover and see the ripening raspberry in the bush, when we taste the deliciousness of an apple or touch the warm embrace of a hug, and more than these, though, through your son's sacrifice on the cross and death, burial, and resurrection. Amen.